Donna Tallarico is posing as Bucky Ignatius.
Okay. Hi, everybody. We're still letting people in. Thank you for coming to this. I'm Deborah Uten. I will give you an idea of what we're doing. I am recording. I think you have to accept the recording.
It's 12 o'clock.
It is 12 o'clock. And so would you mind muting yourself unless you are speaking? Also, hi, Lauren. We are asking that people leave their video on, please, so that we can see people. That would be helpful. Let me, as people are still coming in, let me give you a little idea of what we will be doing today. George Winton is somebody who's been in Ron's life for a long, long time. He will offer the opening prayer for us. Then, of course, what we're planning on doing today is sharing, sharing, questioning. After George gives the opening prayer, he will do a share, and then David Charpentier will share. And then we will go from there. Then everybody can line up. We will close at 1:30, and we'll close with a celebration of life, sort of a prayer, but it's an invocation that George has done. Okay. How are we doing, David? Do we have everyone in?
Yes, everyone's in. That the waiting room is empty.
Okay, great. All right. It's all yours, George.
Thank you. So let's just take a moment and perhaps take a deep breath as we allow ourselves to drop down into our heart space as we honor Ron today. Today we've gathered to remember, to honor, and to pay tribute to our friend and spiritual brother, Ron Esposito. I think if we were to ask Ron, he would say that the true of us, the essence of us, is spirit. So we've gathered today to honor, pay tribute to, and to connect on a soul level to our beloved Ron. In this now moment, we open our minds and hearts that we may be filled with the understanding that brings us the peace of heart and mind that we're seeking today. For we are eternally united, one with each other and with Ron. We're thankful that although Ron's physical self may have passed from beyond our sight, he is still with us in spirit. Each one of us knew and loved Ron in a special way, and we know him still as he continues to live as love in our hearts. Ron, God bless you, man, and much love to you, now and always, and amen. And so I'll just share a little bit about Ron from my perspective. I met Ron while I was on staff at the New Thought Unity Center. He would attend services occasionally, and he became aware that I was recording a radio show, the show Life is Meant to Be Good, still on the air. At that time, we were recording the show in the sanctuary of our church. So when Ron found out about that, he volunteered to assist in recording the show along with some other radio savvy volunteers. That was the beginning of our 30 plus years of friendship. I soon learned, as everyone would if they hung around with Ron, that he was into personal growth. And fortunately, so was I. Our show moved to WVXU and the X-Star Radio Network, and our show was first engineered by John Hingsbergen, some of you may remember him, and then by Ann Thompson, she's still there. They got new assignments, and the angels must have been smiling on us because my next engineer, my new engineer, turned out to be Ron Esposito. It was great. It was really a marriage made in heaven for the two of us. Socially, it meant that we got to spend more time together. We'd go to lunch before the show and sometimes after the show. We would talk and share and compare spiritual truths that even each of us were still learning. And I can remember Ron, as we were recording the show, sitting across from me on the other side of the board. And the guest would make some comment on spiritual truth or some spiritual idea. And Ron would, who's also with his headset on listening, he'd start nodding his head in agreement. And other times, a guest might make something that Ron didn't necessarily agree with, and he'd start shaking his head from side to side because he had a significant different point of view. Our guest point of views were always a catalyst for a discussion after the show. It was great. Ron, as you know, was the seeker of truth. And as best as I could tell, he was always learning and expanding his horizons. He had a master's degree, but his focus was on spirituality. He became a certified life coach, an Enneagram teacher and trainer, an addiction recovery facilitator at the Conscious Living Center here in Cincinnati. And he also taught classes there as well. As a spiritual teacher, I saw Ron as a practicing mystic, drawing upon Eastern spirituality and philosophy, as well as the Western New Thought metaphysical principles that we study and teach at Unity. If you knew Ron for any length of time, you knew that he knew a lot. He not only knew it, he taught it, and by golly, he lived it. And so every time I think of Ron, I'm going to be eternally grateful for having walked a good part of my human journey with him. It was a blessing in my life. He was a blessing in my life. And I'll just close by saying, God bless you, man, and much love to you now and always. Debbie?
Thank you, George. That's beautiful. I love much love. Much love, man.
Much love, man.
There you go. David?
David Charpentier. I met Ron 24 years ago, right around this time of the year. And it is, words cannot explain the impact he has had on my life. And that impact will be felt generationally in my family. And over the last several weeks, I've had a lot of opportunity just to reflect on on some of those things. A mutual friend of ours described Ron and gave me a sacred trust. And about 3 months ago, he asked me to be his healthcare power of attorney and the executor of his estate. And I was able to be with him physically when he was in the hospital, and had the opportunity to tell him how pissed off I was at him for signing those documents in May and then doing this in June. At least he could have done it a couple months earlier. But it really is it has been an honor and privilege to hold that space for him. I have been married for 17 years and have 2 children with my current wife, and we have a son and a stepson, each of us from previous marriages. And Ron has impacted our family. And when I say generationally, a number of times over the last couple of weeks, my 14-year-old daughter has walked in and went, hey, chica, echoing what Ron would say when he would greet her. They remember him. And a couple things I want to share. Ron, when I met Ron, I was just recently separated from the Army. And let's say the ideology we had on many levels could not have been more polar opposite. And the thing that drew me to Ron more than anything was love. And he loved me unconditionally. Whether we agreed or didn't agree, he just loved me. And that is what will impact my family. I think it's not an understatement to say literally and figuratively, I would not be sitting where I am today without him and the love he freely gave to me. He has been a presence in my life like a giant redwood on the coast of California. And I am grateful that his memory continues to be a blessing for me and my family. Yeah, and Ron would, maybe the thing I will miss the most, when he and I would depart company, he would give me a great big hug. He would kiss me on the cheek, and he would say, I love you with all my heart. I miss him deeply. I love him with all my heart. And, Godspeed, brother. I love you.
Thank you, David. Daniel, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Epstein, and I've known Ron for 24 years also. And if it wasn't for Ron, I would know nothing of Thomas Merton and anybody who was inspired by him or ran in that circle. Ron turned me on to Thomas Merton, part of Thomas Merton's journals that so deeply resonated with me, Learning to Love. And I was recently going through videos of J. Krishnamurti, and who would I tell about that other than Ron? Anybody who I would come across that was inspiring from a metaphysical point of view, I would contact Ron. Ron taught me about the promises, especially at times when I was so fearful about my career. And he taught me that there was a better life ahead. And then maybe more on a professional note, Ron would produce music concerts that I would hold. He was always up for helping me when a musical act was involved, and I had 3 or 4 of these events. And as recent as May 20th, he produced my birthday party. His impact on my life was profound, and I'm going to deeply miss him. It's hard to imagine a world without him. And I'm just so grateful that he was part of my life. I can only hope to impact some other people the way Ron impacted me. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Would you manage the waiting room for us? It appears that people are getting in
Yes, I
there.
will.
Thank you.
Yep.
Steve, would you like to talk next?
Sure. I was thinking as the previous gentleman spoke about the number of years that you've known Ron. I've known Ron for 4 years. And he's been guiding me through my Enneagram journey and helping me with a lot of life stuff. And I was thinking how fortunate you all were to know Ron for so many more years than I did. And then I heard Ron's voice in my head saying, that's your comparative mind, Steve, and that's a problem. Don't do that. So I won't do that. he touched me deeply, and even though we had a short period of time together, we became fast friends, and he did touch my heart. In fact, he helped open my heart. I think I had a pretty big lockbox around it when I first started seeing Ron, and he's single-handedly helped with that. I wore this chapeau in honor of him today because he loved those kind of hats, and I think I'll wear it more often, and because it helps me think of Ron. I deeply miss him, and I wish I could hear his laugh again in person. He loved a good joke. I've been in sales all my life, and I told him a story about sales reps that we called 7-Elevens, and you don't know if you remember that change used to have a slogan, "We're always open, we never close." And so we used to talk about 7-Eleven reps who never closed anything, and he just thought that was the funniest thing. And he brought it up, I don't know how many times. He would say, "Yeah, you got another 7-Eleven rep there, don't you?" So, but just love the man, love everything he's brought to me, and it sounds like to many people on this call, and miss him deeply.
Thank you, Steve. Kathleen, and then Neil, and then we'll open it up to everyone else.
Kathleen Hartman Blackburn, and I feel like I'm at a loss for words to describe the impact that Ron had on my life, both as a friend and professionally, and generationally, as David spoke about, through multiple relationships, through my kids and grandkids. It's huge, the impact that he had on all of us and still has on all of us. I'm trying to picture being at the center without Ron. And it feels like there's just a big hole. And I know I hear Ron's voice, as each of us brings back memories of him, as he says, to kind of be in the spirit, be in the life that is here, and not to look for what is missing, but to be with all that we have and all that we are with one another. And so I feel like that's what we can share in with Ron as we continue to bring his life and his spirit throughout the world that we live in. And so for that, I'm very, very grateful. I've been very, very helped by all the comments that people have made about the impact that Ron has had on their lives. And it's been kind of humbling to know that I have shared space with him in a professional level and have been able to kind of be among the things that he has valued, and to participate in that on such a deep level. I miss him and his body, and I know that his spirit and that his love lives on in each of our hearts. And for that, I am very, very grateful. So thank you for all of you today as you contribute to this ongoing unfolding of Ron's life and what it has meant to each of us.
Thank you, Kathleen. Can everyone see and hear me?
Yes.
Nope. It's really hard to encompass all that my relationship with Ron was in just a few minutes. So I'll struggle to keep this brief. I met Ron, I must have been 2007, maybe 2008. All the years run together for me anymore. And I was a participant in a group called the Conscious Choice Cinema. And a lot of us would get together over at the Carnegie Theater in Kentucky and watch a movie or documentary that was related to spirituality, cosmic consciousness, evolution, anything profoundly interesting. And I would go every couple of months and sit in. And Ron was emceeing one of these events. And I can't even remember the movie or documentary I went to see that night. But there was always a Q&A after the movie. And Ron, with his usual charm, would kind of run the Q&A. And he called on me to say something. And I did. And to this day, I can't remember what I said, but it must have grabbed Ron. He said, "Man, thank you for your input. I want to talk to you after this. Hang around." And that was the beginning of my friendship with Ron Esposito. He called me aside that night and said, "Man, we're doing wonderful things at the Conscious Living Center. You have to come by and check us out. You have to come by and see what we're doing. We're doing some wonderful things." And so I had known Ron, of course, from his radio presence on WVXU, but Ron at that point became not only a friend, but my bridge to the Conscious Living Center. And that night, Ron kind of established something that came to be a part of our friendship. He would always validate my insights, especially where I struggled with self-doubt, kind of unsure about what I'm perceiving and thinking. And Ron would kind of give it the ah-ho if it was right on, and only the way that Ron could. And he just made to be a tremendous teacher at Conscious Living Center and a magnanimous friend. And his sensibility, the size of his heart, ran from the ridiculous to the sublime. We could talk about anything. And our conversations were often peppered with that gigantic laugh. I remember having a massage practice, my office at the Conscious Living Center, just down the hall from Ron. And Ron would be carrying on with his coaching, his life coaching. And I would be into the serenity of the massage, just kind of one with my client. And you know about that silent space, it's kind of sacred. And then it would be interrupted by this raucous baritone every so often, like, "Hell yeah, man." You know, and it was just, and it would shake the rafters. And I knew that Ron was in the house. There was nothing like that. And ordinarily, as a 5, I am piqued by interruptions, but not with Ron, because I always knew where it was coming from, And I can only say that I love him and I miss him. I will speak of him in the present tense. I did speak to Ron briefly the day of his collapse. We were planning to get together for lunch, as we did ever so often, and we were both busy. You know how it is. You just have things to do and things don't line up. And we didn't think anything else of the conversation, and it was our last. And so I didn't get the news until the next day from Deborah that Ron had taken ill. And so it kind of reached back to something that Ron and I always talked about, was that how life was fleeting and that nothing was promised. And that that's basically okay, because everything we need for the journey is right here, right now. And we miss his form. We miss the sound of that voice. But the oneness and love that Ron moved into, I would like to think, is a continuation of the work that he was already doing. And so the time came for him to raise his vibration just a little higher, out of the range of our senses and our touch and our voice, but not from our hearts. Ron, wherever you are, Godspeed, carry on with your evolution to your next adventure. I love you and I miss you. Take care, my friend.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you,
Mike.
Deb.
Michael, you have your hand up. You want to go?
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you. Thank you for your service here. Thank you all. I'm Michael Stubbs. I'm in California. We moved here 4 years ago to be near our grandchildren, but a part of my life, my spiritual recovery journey began some 30 years ago. And Ron was the first person I met in that journey, and it was through his voice. I too wear my hat in his honor. When I saw this hat in the store on a mountaintop, I thought, that reminds me of Ron. I knew his voice from the radio. I listened to WVXU being a jazz fan, and heard his voice almost every night. And when I walked into that room at Pilgrim Chapel some 28 years ago, his was the first voice I heard. It was unmistakable. I said, I know that voice. And I was a little intimidated going to this group, because walking into a group full of people that I did not know was pretty big for me at that time. But as soon as I heard his voice, I felt safe. He said, this is a safe place. And getting to know Ron over the years, seeing him regularly at that group, getting to know several of the people that are here today. It just made the journey pleasant, rewarding, and beneficial. And I too love the phrase that Ron coined, much love. And I think if that phrase is in any kind of dictionary or journal, his picture should be there next to it. But I was shocked when I got that phone call from one of our brothers about a week ago. When I saw the name pop up on my phone, I said, uh-oh, something's not right. And I still can't believe he's gone, at least his physical form. Spiritually, I know he'll be with us on this journey. But I miss you, Ron. I love you, Ron. And I love you all as brothers and sisters for being part of this journey today. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Billy? Can't hear you, honey. You have to unmute.
Yeah, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I'd like to just say how nice it is to see you, Deborah, George, Cheryl, Donna. I'm also in California, so it's really early. Not jazz hours here. I've known Ron. I was trying to figure it out. It's got to be like 40 years or something. Ridiculous. It was I moved to Athens, Ohio, with my first wife, Cheryl Wallace, to be the music director for the School of Dance there. And I got a phone call. I was listening to the local radio, and there was a most fantastic radio show ever that I'd ever heard. I think it was called Idiosyncrasies, or I can't remember the name. If somebody's aware of that. Is that true? Audiosyncrasies. Thank you. Right. Audiosyncrasies. And one of the things that I loved about the show is that he just played music that he loved. It wasn't like straight ahead jazz or whatever. It wasn't a specific style. It was everything that Ron loved. And it was so amazing and such a joyful thing to do. And so, you know, one day out of the blue, I get a phone call from him. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the DJ that I'm listening to is calling me. And I'm like, what? How? He found out that I was from Cincinnati, and he was interested in moving to Cincinnati. And he asked me, where do you think that I could do this show, or what do you think I should? And I said, well, WVXU is the obvious choice. You have to talk to them. And he did, I guess, take my advice, and he got the job, and he did that for years. I moved back to Cincinnati. We became really close friends. He emceed many of my shows. He was a big fan of my music. He was a supporter, though, of me and beyond the music. And I remember one really telling story was in my first marriage. It broke up because I needed to do something different. I needed to move on, and it was difficult. And my first wife made it very hard for me, and I was struggling with that. I got married again, and then found out that relationship was going to end because my second wife, she was moving on, and I was feeling really hard pressed. And I remember I was doing a show on one of those, like a jazz cruise on the river, and Ron was emceeing that. And I remember talking to him and saying, you know, Ron, this is so weird. Like I suffered through this first relationship breakup, and then now it's happening to me. Like my heart's being broken, and and I said, it feels like karma. And he goes, no, that's not what karma is. I said, oh, well, because he said karma is not revenge. It's like that the universe is not coming back to punish you. It's really trying to say, what do you learn? What have you learned? And I said, well, I would never want to put this person through what I went through. And so I decided to take that breakup with love, and it turned out to be a really positive thing. And he really helped me through a very critical part of my life. It's just such an amazing spirit. And I too cannot believe that I won't hear that voice. I have a lot of hats. I don't have one like Ron's, and I think I'm going to go get one. As you might notice, I need to wear a hat like sometimes right now. I'm going through some chemotherapy. I finished up recently. And man, I wish that I could talk to Ron about it. I hadn't thought about that until now. I miss him. And thank you guys. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Billy. It's good to see you. Regina?
Thank you, Deborah, for this time. And hello to everyone here. This is hard for me too. I met Ron through the Conscious Living Center. I think it was 2010, 2011. He typed me as a counterphobic 6. He was spot on. And we talked about that, but then I realized, yes, he was the voice on the station from WVXU, and I met him in Cincinnati, but we connected so much around jazz and around culture, and particularly African diasporic traditions and religions, because he's worked with some artists in Cuba and up and down the East Coast. And so we would then parlay our conversation into music and jazz and soul and funk and Ohio, voodoo, Ifa. And I'm looking at this like, gosh, this white dude knows about this stuff because he's worked with all these people, he's studied, and he always kept in touch with me. When I went off to another graduate program at OU, he kept in touch with me there. He was always interested. Facebook, you know, he would DM me like, hey, how are things going? How are you doing? And I just thought to myself, you know, this dude is so cool. Like, what a mentor, what a friend, and what a true spirit. Like everyone, people have said before, the safety people have felt when they're with him. I felt that with him. And May, April, I had planned a trip to come back to Cincinnati. I'm in Atlanta now. And I planned to come back to Cincinnati to do a photo shoot. And Ron came to mind. I hadn't seen him in a while. And I reached out to him. He said, yeah, sure, we'll meet up. And we met up at Iris Bookstore, May 28th, and had a wonderful conversation, laughed, talk about spirit, music. And I just never thought that would be my last time seeing him. And I know Spirit had it on my mind, you know, for a reason to reach out to him. And I see why now. And I'm so thankful and glad that I followed the leading of Spirit. And he was that way too. And so I'm forever grateful for everything that he taught me about myself. Thank you. I'm so thankful for this time. And Ron's spirit will continue to live on in everything that I do and who I am and how I connect with people. And I wish him nothing but light and love, because that's what he was while he was here. And that's who he'll be for me. Much love to all of you. Much love.
Thank you, Regina. I think, Laura, you were next. Somehow the hands have disappeared, so it's probably because I can't see.
Hi. Yeah, I think I'm Lori.
Laura, you probably have another device turned on. If you
I
could turn.
do. Well, I'm talking on Susan Smith, so let me leave and.
And you have to unmute Susan.
Okay, sorry. Susan and I didn't want to be alone for this.
Makes sense.
So my name's Lori Hughes, and I met Ron about 31 years ago, I think, almost. And I was in a support group meeting with him probably an hour or less before he had his cardiac arrest, and gave him a hug. In case anyone wants to know, he was perfectly fine. Talked, laughed, hugged. And so I was stunned, as many others have talked about, when I heard that he had collapsed. And so Ron, it feels to me like Ron's spirit has been with me like 100 times more than usual since he passed. It's kind of weird because it feels like I can hear his voice a ton. And usually I don't think I paid all that much attention to Ron in my head. But there's a couple of things that I wanted to share that have helped me with my grieving. But first, Ron used to say, I'm an artist, more or less starving artist, and Ron was too at times. And once years ago, when I was really, really suffering, hitting bottom with my feelings of inadequacy and everything, he told me in his slow way of talking, for today, I have everything I need. And I wrote that down, and I actually still have that little piece of paper, and it's been at least 20, 25 years. And it's something I look at still need to know. And just recently in a meeting, he said, when I turn my will and my life over to God, I have everything I need, everything. And that helps me. I love those words of his, and I will think of him every time I say them to myself, which is pretty frequently. And then two other things. One, something that Arlo Guthrie said when Pete Seeger died, which I just treasure. Apparently he said, sure, he died, but he's not gone. And that, I love that. It's totally true for me. And then as an artist, I feel like I'm really moved by a quote from actually the news reporter Ted Koppel, which I heard back when my dad died years ago. And he said, you say this person has enriched your life. Well, what are you going to do with all your riches? And that's my way of coping, because particularly as an artist, instead of getting stuck, feeling sad and feeling the loss, it's like I can feel the energy of Ron's, laugh, and probably real slow talking, answering machine message on his voicemail. And it just gives me the energy to move forward with my creativity, and especially in some form of tribute to him, which I'm hoping to, put together for other artists of any sort who want to participate in that, maybe in a year or something. But for me, it's just, so what are you going to do with all your riches? Anyway, thanks.
Thanks, Lori.
Much love.
Yeah, much love.
Susan, did you want to speak since?
Not right this minute, no.
Okay, thank you. I think Fran and then Cheryl.
Hi, yeah, this is Fran. My experience of Ron goes back a long time and is a lot more distant than probably most of you here. Ron and I worked together at WVXU, and that's where I met him. And I have something kind of fun and light, the way I remember him so distinctly. I could even still see the corridor at WVXU. Of course, as you know, in those days, he was a real rock and roller. And I always remember his incredible voice. I was walking down the corridor one day, and we met up, and I'm not sure why, but I said something to him. We were talking about Jimi Hendrix. And I said, yeah, something about, excuse me while I kiss this guy. And not the sky, but this guy. And that was it. Ron absolutely lost it. His laugh just filled the whole corridor. He cracked up. And I still remember that, probably more vividly than anything else. Anyway, we kind of lost connection, but then we reconnected again, and we'd have lunch occasionally. I left VXU, he left VXU, everything changed. And then I got to know him a little bit more during, with the Enneagram, and we would talk about that, and we had lunch a few times. And then really lost connection. Then my husband and I moved out about a year ago to Tucson, Arizona. And funnily enough, we reconnected since I've been out here through a common connection, somebody who was an intern with him at WVXU, and she'd known me. And I saw that she reached out to me, I think somehow on Facebook or whatever. So we talked a little bit, and then he came into the bank in Cincinnati where my daughter's working. And she said, guess who I saw today? So this all happened in the last couple of months. Sort of interesting how that evolved. And so I reached out to him, and then we had a Zoom meeting maybe just 2-3 months ago. And so you can imagine how shocked I was to hear the news. And it was actually Tanvi Patel, who is his music license agent. And she reached out to me and let me know what was happening. So that's how it all kind of came around. But I just wanted to join in today for a little bit to send my thoughts and prayers and hopes and my memories of Ron. And I know for many of you here, it's a lot more painful because you are connected. You've been connected with him really recently. So thank you for putting this together. I really appreciate it because obviously being out here in Tucson, I was not going to be able to attend in Cincinnati. And yeah, thanks again for doing this. And he will always be remembered for sure. And especially his laugh. Thank
So
you.
true. Thank you, Fran. Just because Fran mentioned that, Ron's birthday is September 6th. We will do an in-person get-together in Cincinnati. The place is to be determined, and it will be September 9th. You know, we at the Conscious Living Center love the numbers 3, 6, and 9. And so his birthday is the 6th. So we're going to celebrate on the 9th his life in person. We're thinking it might be at David's farm, but we're still trying to nail a few things down. Okay. Thank you, Fran. Cheryl?
Hi, I'm Cheryl Pockrose, and I met Ron in 2003 at something called Life Success Seminars. And he was a group leader, and at a certain point, everybody had to go to the group leader they wanted after they all had spoken. And so when he spoke, I recognized his voice immediately from the radio. So I did not choose him because this was supposed to be self-exploration. I thought I'd be very distracted. But we were all together for like 5 days. And so I did get to know him a little bit, and also somebody named Maggie Hecker, who was learning the Enneagram. So I ended up in a small group, Enneagram typing. I was typed as a 5. And I appeared with Ron on panel day with him as a 1 and me as a 5, until somebody said, you know, you really need to meet with Deb Ooten and do the real test. We don't think you're a 5. And I ended up, I'm a 1. So then I appeared on panel day with him as a 1. And so we joked a lot about that. And I was just an acquaintance on the fringe of things with Ron. But the last time I saw him in person was before the pandemic. I'm a ukulele player. And he invited me over to his house to see if there was some way we could integrate ukulele with either the crystal bowls or jazz interpretation. And as you might imagine, we did not come up with anything performable, but of course we had a great time. He thought it was hilarious, the ukulele. And I saw him in between at a couple Zoom things, but yeah, he was just such one of a kind that it's appropriate. He had that voice that if it was anywhere in the building, you knew he was there and you gravitated towards him. And so I'm just glad I have so many happy memories of Ron.
Thank you, Cheryl. Kelly?
I'm Kelly Ritchie. I first moved to Cincinnati in '97. And I was playing an award show, and not being from here, I didn't know who Ron was. And the next morning I woke up and someone had left a really long, very kind voicemail about the show. And my publicist said, oh, that's Ron Esposito. He's on the radio. He was the bass player for Greg Schaber. It was just so kind. Fast forward almost 15 years. And I had come off the road for a year and I got sober. And somebody gave me Ron's card and said he was, some guy named Ron Esposito was playing singing bowls. And I thought, is that the same Ron? And so I went and I saw him do a performance at the Conscious Living Center. And he and I got together for coffee. And we probably went through about 3 pots of coffee. And a couple of months after that, I had some things happen in my life. And I remember calling Ron and I said, I could use a friend. He said 4 words, I'll be right there. And my doorbell rang in 30 minutes. We met a lot of times over Zoom during COVID. And thank God I got to see him the week before he passed at a handpan show. I didn't think he'd be there. And I heard his laugh. And it's probably the biggest hug I've had since before COVID. There's just no hug like Ron. Better miss him. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Brandon?
Hey, everybody. Yeah, Ron came into my life magically 10 years ago when I first moved to Cincinnati and was playing. Don't remember which event we connected at, but he instantly was a very heavy presence in my life. Has been an immense friend, mentor, a guide stone for me on a musical and spiritual and personal level for all that time. It continues to be, but just a super meaningful presence. And me and my bandmates were always happy to see or hear Ron when he'd walk in the door at a musical performance. He was always so supportive. And as many of the musicians here know, one of the struggles we go up against is attendance at our performances. But Ron made up for an empty room because he counted, it seemed like he counted for like 100 or 200 people, you know, just him being there just made everything else go away. Any other feelings would just disappear when Ron would walk in. And I'm grateful to not only have known him and connected with him because, you know, as we go through this life and meet different people, it's rare to meet somebody that you connect with on so many different levels, from not only an absurd sense of humor, which we can appreciate, which is kind of low level stuff, all the way up to the spiritual and metaphysical things and interests that we shared. And then just our mutual love of music. It was great to have a friend who we could go toe to toe talking about our favorite recording, historical music happenings and all these things, and sharing stories. And not only that, just he always knew the right words to say, to be supportive and to show love. It's really important. I always felt he was one of those people that wasn't afraid to tell you that he loved you. And I find that important too. And it was really meaningful that every interaction, whether in person or on the phone or over a Zoom call, ended with those words that I love you very much, or I love you with all my heart, or much love. And it's sometimes rare in this day and age, and it was really meaningful. And yeah, just love Ron a lot, and he'll always be with us who knew him closely. And yeah, I know he knows how much of an impact he was all those years. But I just wanted to share that he just was a really, really, really important figure in my life. And I know other musicians that feel the same way, just how special he made you feel, just with his smile, his laughter, and his kind words of support, and his most excellent ears. Thank you all.
Thank you, Brandon. Nick?
Unmute, right? It's great to see so many people together who love Ron. The last time I spoke with Ron was about 2 weeks before his death. I'm in New York, and he called from Cincinnati, and we were commiserating about the loss of a very close friend from our college days. So I lost 2 of my oldest boyfriends in 2 weeks. So it's been really rough. And thankfully, two of my other boyfriends are alive and kicking, and they're on the Zoom. The last time I saw Ron was a year ago. He came and visited and stayed with my wife and I here in New York for a week in our house. And it was just a riot and a blessing to have Ron here for the week. The first time I met Ron was 54 years ago. It was the fall of 1969. We were both living in James Hall at Ohio University, and we met in our dormitory. And as you all know, Ron has this great talent for inventing words and giving people alternate names. And after a week, he said to me, "Nick, I'm your odious Nick." And from then on, for the next 54 years, I've always been odious Nick, despite the fact that I shower every day. In any event, we became fast friends that fall of '69, and he had this growing, intense love and curiosity of jazz and beat literature, which he conveyed to me, and I found of great interest. So I said to him, "Ron, why don't you come to my house this Christmas break? I lived on Long Island, and we'll go hear some jazz." And he said, "Great." Came to my house in December of '69, and every night we went into Manhattan and to a different jazz club. Night after night after night after night, we saw so much great talent. We got to see Charlie Mingus chew out one of his band members, and Ron said, "I'll never forget that." In conclusion, well, almost, one night, well, before that, during the day, I took him to Jones Beach, and he had never seen the ocean before. And it was a cold, blustery, windy day. And we're walking out on the sand. There's nobody there, of course. And he just looked at me and said, "Nick, this is splendiferous." Anyway, a memorable moment. Finally, one night on our way to or from a jazz club, we're walking the streets of Greenwich Village. It's dark, it's cold, and down the sidewalk, walking towards us, is this short, portly man with a long hair and a beard, and he walked right by us, and Ron says, I think that was Allen Ginsberg." And he just grabbed me and pulled me, and we turned around and we chased Allen Ginsberg down the sidewalk, and we stopped Allen Ginsberg, and Ron immediately introduced himself as Ron and started questioning Ginsberg about other beat poets, where they are and what they're doing. And Ginsberg was very courteous and considerate. And I pointed at Ron and said, "He's from Ohio," as explanation for why someone would do this, and accosted him on the sidewalk. But Ginsberg was really generous with his time and talked for a good 10 minutes as Ron kept asking him all these questions. Anyway, finally, Ginsberg said, "I got to go." And Ron turned to me and said, "That was splendiferous." Anyway, those are just some of the memories I have of Ron, who I miss dearly. He's meant so much to me these last 54 years. Anyway, thanks for getting together and doing this.
Thank you, Nick. Jim?
Yeah, thank you, Debbie, and thanks for letting me be here today and celebrating this. Someone pointed out earlier that Ron was a mystic, and I think he is a mystic, and I think that he turned me on to mysticism and the Enneagram, and gave me as a band a life coach that I can kind of lean back into in his life and now in his passing, because I think he'll always be with us. And he'll be with us through his music and through his memories. And, I'm a 9 with an 8 wing. And Ron, I sat across from Ron many, many times in his office with that little Enneagram diagram between us. And we just talked and talked and talked. And he would give me his insights and never really judged me and never did anything other than encourage me. And then, of course, Debbie, everyone knows that has been through the CLE school. We did that for a 2-year period, and he was part of that, and really appreciated him being there throughout. And just shows you what kind of man he is. When I was running for office, he held a campaign sign on a street corner and for like a couple hours. And just because I asked him to, and I said, Ron, what can we do here in the last 2 days? And he did that. And that just shows you what kind of giving spirit he was. I think that was 2012. And, throughout the rest of the last decade or more, I just know Ron's been there. And I haven't really done a lot of one-on-ones with him recently, but I just know he's there and his music is there. And all these people that are here today are testament to that. So thank you, Ron. And publicly, I want to say I want to go take your spirit and move on in my work and as a professional using the Enneagram and teaching the Enneagram, and you'll always be in my heart. Much love, Sir Ron. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Antoinette?
Hello, and I am so honored to be with all of this love and all of this sharing, and to see just a fraction of the people that Ron had touched, and to hear of all the ways he's been touched. And I thank you for reminding me of things I have forgotten about, experiences that I had where Ron was a part of it. And my first awareness of Ron was with WVXU and listening to his radio shows. And I really was drawn to him, and I wasn't sure why. Was it his voice? Was it his, his presence? What, I didn't know what it was, but it didn't really matter. And when I had the privilege and honor and pleasure of meeting him at the New Thought Unity Center in person, we were in many classes together, and more often than not, we ended up being seatmates with each other, or we'd be in groups with each other. And it was such a delight to be able to have really deep, insightful, and meaningful conversations with him. That's not common with a lot of people, even those who might be interested in metaphysics or spirituality or music. There's some who are surface, and then there are those rare gems where you can really feel you're being seen, and you're able to be allowed to see the person you're speaking with. So being witness and witnessing, and the laughs, and just it got to be where we were surprised if we weren't in a class together. So it was really great. But I had the opportunity to have many conversations outside of class with Ron, and I know that when he was starting to transition into the life coaching and the work at the Conscious Living Center, he was so excited, and we got together to talk about that because I had been coaching and doing the different things that I had been doing. And he just wanted to just find out what I did, or get insights on, just to connect, or that's what I thought. But I'm sure with Ron, you think you're getting together for lunch, or you think you're, and it becomes so much more. And I know from my own experience, and I know from hearing what's been shared already and feeling intuitively what is present in this space, and all those who may not have been able to be here but are tuned in some way, that it wasn't an accident Ron went to work with the Conscious Living Center. It wasn't just the place that he went to work that aligned with and honored who he was and what he brought forth. He lived consciously. So it was kind of like a message of who he was, and he never stopped discovering, investigating, learning, and then he shared what he learned in so many different ways, as we've heard a little touch of. And then just how he's transitioned and morphed and the things he was drawn to. Definitely a Renaissance soul. That's my term for it, a Renaissance soul. And a delighting in life and what showed up. And then with the singing bowls, when he got into that, and I was privileged to hear him at different places. And then I'm up here in Hamilton, Ohio, and it's in between Cincinnati and Dayton. And we had for 23 years something called the Music Cafe that my husband was a part of from the beginning, and I was involved in different aspects in different ways. And Ron came several times to play in this small venue, listening room type experience, and he was fully on, fully present. The space didn't matter. The number of people didn't matter. He got to share something that he was the conduit to bring forth. And so it was such a pleasure. And we didn't see each other as much over the past several years, but I would see where he was performing, or would find out he's releasing a CD or got some more music out, and I always was tuned in some way, because it didn't seem to matter that I didn't see him physically or speak with him physically. There was some connection and conduit. And when I had seen, because I saw the announcement in the weekly newsletter that goes out from New Thought Unity Center, I just felt this big drop. And it's like, oh my gosh. Just, and then I felt the love, and I felt the gifts, and the grief that has been open and expanded, and I've been on a journey of befriending grief, has been deepened, because it represents love on so many levels and in so many ways. And I've got a group that I've been a part of since the pandemic started. And we've been meeting 3 times a week. And we had a meeting the day after I had seen about Ron. And I was sharing about him in a check-in. And I don't know if Ron ever said this, but as I was talking about Ron and how much he had an impact on my life, and then I used these words because I could hear it and feel it. And I said, he was one cool cat. and I could feel a smile. So one cool cat may fit with singing bowls. Maybe not. But he was such a blessing. And I know that he lived from his soul. He lived consciously. He loved life. And everyone here and everyone that was here and had to leave and everyone that he ever met, he saw you. And you touched him and blessed him as you thought he was blessing you. And I am so grateful for that. And I really appreciate that this was being offered. So blessings to you all. And may the graces that you have received from Ron continue to deepen. And thank you.
Thank you. Laura?
Thank you so much for putting this together, and thank you everyone for sharing. I've known Ron for about 4 years, and I was introduced to him through a friend who he had mentored. Just like some of you, I came to him at a time where I was like at a crossroads in my life. And I had the privilege of seeing him as like a life coach, and he brought a lot of clarity and inspiration and humanity to my life. Yeah, so I'm a 2. I found that out through Ron, and it's not a surprise because I'm nearing the end of my mental health counseling program. And after I stopped seeing him as a life coach, we just remained friends. And we would get together, go to Alt Park, go for walks, sit on benches and talk for hours. I saw him the Monday before he passed. And he had this idea for us to go bowling, which I thought was really fun, at Madison Pool, which is like right where he lives, right? And I was like, oh, how delightful. It was Juneteenth, so I was off work, and so what a great idea. And we arrived before it was open. So we decided to go to Starbucks and have a coffee, and that turned into basically a 2-hour conversation, and just really enjoyed, going deep with him, as was always the case. He was one of those amazing people who could go high and low because he was such a goofball and so funny, but was so deep and just connected to all that is, and so wise. And just like he did a lot with me, he would give me these like nuggets, these takeaways of just like wisdom. And he gave me 3. He said, I have 3 for you. And the main one was surrender, surrender, surrender. And that was on his mind. And then the other one was, it was kind of like 2 parts. It's the both and. So it was, and I don't remember his language. His language is better than mine, but in my mind, I encoded it as life is a dumpster fire. And every moment is sacred. And it was just like so beautiful. And we're having our coffee, and this stands out to me too. There was just like a pause. We were just drinking our coffee, and he just had a thought, and it brought tears to his eyes. And his thought was, he was thinking about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. I'm not super familiar, but he was, thinking about like what it would mean to know that you were going to pass. And just, I don't know, it was really just profound thought, and just thinking about the character of Jesus, which is just love. And it just brought tears to his eyes, and it just connected and hit with me. And we talked about both of us having had the experience of holding a loved one, holding their hand while they passed. He with Carol and me with my father. And like the peace in the room. And he said that losing Carol was so peaceful, and it was so beautiful. And it was like her spirit lifted and filled the room like gossamer. I remember that language because it was so gorgeous. And it occurred to me in hearing you speak that how weird is life? Like, so my father passed. My father had schizophrenia and was separated from my mother early in my life. And basically he suffered a lot. And he would always encourage me. He would like encourage me to listen to this radio show on WVXU that he loved. And it's like, I think it might have been Ron's, but I like never listened because it's like, I just didn't want to be like my dad. My dad loved jazz. It was like his favorite, and it was like a reprieve from his suffering. And I wonder if it was WVXU, and then how lucky I am that the universe somehow brought me to meet Ron anyway. So sorry to cry so much, but I just am very grateful and find this to be very healing to hear about him from so many of you who've known him much longer. So thank you.
Thank you. So there are 3 more of you. We'll do those 3, and then we'll close with George giving a celebration of life invocation. Lisa?
Thank you. So Ron was an acquaintance in my life, and he was integral to my life, the both and of that. I met Ron through Beth O'Hara, I think. I don't exactly remember when I met Ron. And I attended some of the singing bowl meditations at the Conscious Living Center. And from that, I reached out to Ron and said, hey, would you think about playing singing bowls at the upcoming wedding for me and Mark? And he did. And I think that was the first time that he had participated with singing bowls at a wedding. I'm not positive about that, but I think that's what he said. And, Ron played at the wedding. That was our music. And he enchanted everyone there with that playing, from young to old, everyone. And he also, in that incredible voice that so many people here clearly cherish, he read Thich Nhat Hanh's poem, Interrelationship. I think that once meeting Ron, somehow his presence, his vibration is inside of us. That's how I feel that he is vibrating inside of me. And his laughter, his ability to create connection, the light of love that surrounds him at all times, and that he brought to everything that he did in the world, was apparent. I'd like to offer out these last couple of lines from the poem that he read at our wedding. I am in this world to offer you peace. You are in this world to bring me joy. And that feels very relevant to Ron and how he moved in the world. So I hope that for all of you missing him so, that his memory is a blessing, and I believe wholly that he is present. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen? Oh, we can't hear you, my dear. No, it's probably on your speaker.
Hello? Am I up? She gave the name and it wasn't there.
No. Okay, Karen, check your computer and we'll come back while you're looking at it. It's probably in your sound system itself. iPhone 6, I can't really see who you are because maybe I need glasses.
My name's Larry. Larry Trepot.
Okay, Larry.
Can you see me now? Can you see me
Yes.
now? Okay. I just want to offer up, I met Ron at one of the lowest points ever in my life. He came into my life just at the right time. One thing about Ron is Ron believed in me at times when I didn't even believe in myself. I've often said to people, we all need a 2 o'clock friend, 2 o'clock a.m. that is, friend. And when I lost my first wife, Ron was there for me in ways that just helped me walk through that tremendous loss. And the thing about Ron always spoke truth to me. I didn't always want to hear what he had to say, but the thing about Ron was he always spoke the truth, and love. And I appreciate, I'm blessed that I got to see Ron about 2.5 weeks before he passed. We went out to, I'll miss him greatly.
Thank you, Larry. Karen, are you back on? Did you get it working?
Yeah, how about, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. So I met Ron, it was probably 2008. And I was starting to do some chanting, playing harmonium. And oh my God, so many beautiful things Antoinette said, so many beautiful things that Laura said are so true and so present in my heart when I think of him. We got together a number of times and had lunch, and he typed me as a 9 over lunch with lots of outrageous laughter and half chewed food and mouths open, and I mean, so much joy, so much joy. And the comment that I really wanted to share with all of you was that not only for me was Ron able to have such a profound and deep sense of all of the spiritual seeking and all of that, but the expansiveness, the full spectrum of his laughter that could absolutely just bring you to your knees, and also his ability to just cry at the drop of a hat. I've never known anyone who so deeply, just like Laura was talking about. And yeah, I think everybody here maybe had a little, Antoinette may have had a story too about he just went there. When there is a truth that resonates so deeply with us, that's when we get called, we get the feeling when tears come. And he was so there. He was so there at the drop of a hat. One moment that I had with him, when I brought my harmonium to the Conscious Living Center one day, and we were kind of jamming and probably bothering Neil Anderson in the other room. and after we were playing music, I had just gone through a process to become a oneness blessing giver. And so I did this Diksha thing where I put my hands on his head, and we had this moment of connection that was so incredibly profound. And I can just feel it even thinking about it now. And after it was over, I took my hands off of his head, and he looked up at me with those beautiful teary eyes and said, "I want to know you forever." And I said, "You already do, cat." He was the coolest cat that I knew. And I'm just, I'm really grateful that I had the great fortune to meet him and just have that full spectrum expanse from laughter to tears and everything in between. So thank you for doing this and putting this together and giving us this opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. I don't know who the iPhone 6 person is because I really can't see you, but you can go next, please.
Let's see. This is Tony Clark. I don't know if you can, I'm not very good at manipulating Zoom, so I hope you'll forgive me, but am I iPhone 6? Is that what it shows up?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Oh,
Carrie,
okay.
you're iPhone 6.
Well, I feel that I feel a little badly about being the last person to speak because I don't have really profound message to share with everyone. But hey to Nick Kovac. But I guess I have to say I've known Ron since Athens days. So any of you other folks who are on the call who've spent some time in Athens in the late 60s or early 70s. And but I guess to say I was so struck that he would die on us. I was like, we were supposed to go to Santana last week. He was coming up to, I'm in Dayton, coming up to Dayton. We were going to have dinner with another old friend from Athens. And we were going to Santana. I was like, oh my gosh, he died before we could get together. How could he do that? Couldn't he wait a week? But, you know, it's just that I think I met Ron when he was pushing a broom in Baker Center in Athens, working for, he worked with the music program there way back. I think I was probably 19 or something. I think it was like 1971. And he was just kind of this cool guy, and he was involved with the music, and that was all good. And then it turned out he was living with a friend of mine, a woman friend of mine. And so I ran into him there, like with another context. And then, you know, he'd been worked with, he was on the road and was a roadie for different bands. And I mean, he was just kind of fascinating, in the yoga and the meditation. And then he connected with another friend of mine where, they were involved in meditation. And so, and then the radio show in Athens. So even if you didn't see him, you always would hear. He was like, for me, I think I took him for granted in a certain way, because he was always there. And as a public figure, you're always there. And so always hearing his opinions and his thoughts, and I think, wisdom and sort of teaching, at least, in the spiritual, when he had the show on WXU with I think it was called Heart and Soul or Heart and Mind. I can't remember what it was called exactly, with his teacher. And just, I don't know, it's just, he's such a common thread for the past 51 years or so. And, in my old age, and as I see his other faces here, some of other folks' old age, we start losing people, and, you start keeping track. Oh my gosh, this person is going and that person is going. And I don't know if I can be, I'm just never ready, but especially wasn't ready this time. And just we would get together probably once a year for dinner, and just kind of chew the fat, shoot the breeze. I didn't have sort of this deep spiritual connection I know that you all have had, but it's just that he was like always a friend. We'd go to a concert here and there, and shared, our relationships with our mutual friends and catching up. And actually, he came to my daughter's wedding and spontaneously spoke and gave a blessing. And, I was like, whoa, I never expected that he would do that, but I knew he was a fish. One of his roles in life was to be an officiant at weddings. So I feel so appreciative to hear all the stories. That's one reason I really wanted to be able to attend, but was uncertain if I could speak, but, and went to, he would do yoga things and this bowl stuff. And it was, it was wonderful to hear him in fact, I saved on my phone, I have his voicemail from like planning to go to dinner, which I've saved now for like 8 years because I could listen to him read the phone book. He had such this, I guess, raucous baritone, as someone said, So I don't know, I guess, although he never saved my life or anything, but he was always like a good friend and a friend, the kind of friend you could just connect with once or twice a year, and you could like sort of, you had the vibe and could pick up where you left off. So I just share with you all this deep loss, and I just cannot believe how could this happen? And so, and really appreciative that you've put this together, and that so many people come together to share their experiences and their feelings. So thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. I know we were going to stop with Terry, but Carrie, let's go ahead. We're going to run over just a little bit, which, as most of you know, is not my habit. So bear with me, please.
And I apologize. I'm actually Alex Hinkle. I'm Ron's son.
Alex. Alex. Oh, God, I should have put on my glasses.
It's all good. It's all good. First off, I really want to thank everyone that shared today, that's joined us today. And for Deborah, thank you for organizing this. I don't know that I could have done it if it was up to me. I'm sure you can all understand that. And all of your stories are absolutely beautiful and absolutely darling to me. And it is such a wonderful joy to know just how many lives that Ron's touched, because obviously he's touched my life my entire life. I've known him from Athens, working at Hoffa's, if any of you remember that. You know, I was the little kid in there taking coins out of the till and putting them into the bubble gum machine so I could. I was like, where did you get the bubble gum? I don't know. But yeah, no, having him as my father was an absolute joy. And Laura, I want to, McLaughlin, I want to point out you. I want to say I see you. I was with David Charpentier in the room with Ron when he passed, and you brought up the point of just this absolute peace of dying. And interestingly enough, this is the third time I've spent with someone as they passed. This was probably, you know, they've all been close to me. Grandma, my sister's dad, and Ron. And it's they're all so very different. And the thing that stands out with him the most is just how utterly at peace he was with this, how peaceful, you know, it was almost like it didn't happen. It was very calm, it was very peaceful, it was. And then as you said, this filling of the room, and I mean, he filled the room in life, but in death he went above and beyond. It was like a massive hug. This is the best way to describe it. And even right now, I don't feel that he's even gone. You know, we all say I can't believe it, but like I really can't. Like I feel his presence with all of us now. I feel it here with me. And I almost feel like he's sitting next to me. I keep thinking, I'm like, how did I just, you know, I feel like, I mean, you get it. And I know he would be blessed by all of you being here, sharing his stories. And I can rattle on and forever about Ron. And you know, his I think one of the beautiful things is and David Charpentier said this best, his Ronisms. And you've all pointed those out today, from hey, pointing at you like that's you when he sees you, and to his nicknames for you. And you know, mine from very young was Cardini or Alejandro. I think I'll take that with you. And yeah, no, it's just, and this is my wife here, Carrie. She's Carrie Domacare, and we had our daughter about 2 years ago, and we were able to come up in October, and he got to meet her, and he was blown away by her. And you know, not to dwell, I was very much looking forward to the point where they could talk on the phone, and they, you know, he could watch her growing up, which, you know, we're gonna miss that. And I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but the one thing, the one Ronism I would like to leave you all with is that the thing I felt most when he passed, his response, like, what is it like? Baby, it'll blow your mind. So I hope you all go back out into this world and continue to have your minds blown and blow the minds of everyone else out there, because I believe that would honor him and us and everyone the most. And thank you again, all of you, so much. And Deborah, I give it back over to you.
Much love.
Yeah, much love to all.
Thank you, Alex. Wow, thank you all for being here, for helping us to celebrate Ron's life. Such great memories. Again, September 9th, we will meet in person someplace in Cincinnati. I have recorded this, so I will put the recording on Facebook, and I will put it on CLC's website so that you can take a peek of it. I've asked George to close with this celebration of life invocation that he does, and I will also print that up and put it on Facebook for us as well. So much love to you all, and we'll stop right after George's George?
Well, first, let me just say that it would be impossible to convey to you the depths of Ron's love for each of you that shared today. But today, in these closing moments in which we celebrate the gift of Ron's life, let these words be his words to you, for I do believe that really they would sum up his thoughts. Family and friends, as I take my leave, I do not say goodbye, for my love for you is truly timeless, beyond the touch of transition. I leave myself to your memory with love. I leave my thoughts, my laughter, and my dreams to you, whom I have treasured beyond gold and precious gems. I give you what no thief can steal, the memories of our times together, the tender, love-filled moments, the successes that we've shared, the hard times that brought us closer together, and the roads that we've traveled side by side. Know that I still live on, vibrating to a different measure behind a veil that you cannot see through. You will not see me, so you must have faith. All I take with me as I leave is your love and the millions of memories of all that we have shared. So I truly enter my new life as a millionaire. I wait the time when we can soar together again, aware of each other. Until then, live your life to the fullest. And when you need me, just whisper my name in your heart. I'll be there. Fear not, nor grieve at my departure. You whom I have loved so much, for my roots and yours are forever intertwined. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, George. Thank you, David and Alex, and all of you who've helped with all of this. I appreciate you all so much. Much love as you go forward.
Much love.